Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we love talking about film festivals and cultural arts and all good things happening all around the Mid-South. We're honored to be joined by our good friend, Marcy Stagner. She's the Program Director of Cultural Arts, Adult Services, and Special Events at the Memphis Jewish Community Center, the JCC. How are you doing, Marcy?
Great. Thank you for having me.
So it's always fun to have you come on because throughout the year you have different programs and everything that's geared toward cultural arts. There's so much good going on at the Memphis Jewish Community Center. And so you have a lot to talk about always, but in this case, you have the Morris and Mollye Fogelman International Jewish Film Festival. It's taking place January 27th to February 24th. And go ahead and give us a little bit of a history because this is a long legacy. And so give us a little bit of history for the film festival overall.
Sure. This is our 9th year of the festival running. So we've had a great run. It grows every year. We show anywhere between 8 and 10 films. We've got 10 this year. And it's just growing every year in partnerships and attendance. Now we're moving into some virtual options, which are always great. So it's just grown every single year. It's been fantastic.
And as you mentioned, this year is special because you have an in-person experience, but you also have the virtual at home where people can participate as well. And so you have the in-home and in-person. Talk through the dynamics of kind of how this year plays out.
Sure. So our opening night is January 27th at the Malco Paradiso at 7 p.m. You can choose between coming in person for that film and going to the Paradiso and watching it in the theater, or you can choose the virtual option and stay in your pajamas and watch it at your house that night. So our opening night film is called Greener Pastures. It is a really hysterical film and it's very heartwarming. It's about this man, this older gentleman who's recently become a widower, and he moves into a retirement facility and he just wants to go back to his home. He wants to be able to buy his home back. He doesn't know how he's going to be able to afford it. And so the other residents in the senior living facility that he's just moved into are talking to him about their medical marijuana licenses that they've gotten. And he's decided that he is going to try to make enough money to buy his house back by selling medical marijuana, not smoking it, but selling it. So it's about all these seniors living in this facility trying to make a buck that way. And it's a great story.
Before we talk about all the different films, because we'll cover some of them, as many as possible, talk about overall kind of how you go about curating the different films and, you know, kind of the experience overall that you're looking for people to take away.
Sure. So I work with a really dedicated group of volunteers who I have worked with for years. They're my committee. They're very involved. I couldn't do this without them. And they are really the group that helps me to select the film. And we start with well over 100 films and we whittled it down to 10 this year. So we really pick the best of the best. We try to pick films that are current, that nobody has seen before. And we want to get a little bit of everything. We don't want to show all documentaries. We don't want to show all feature films. We want to show some comedy. We want to show some drama. We want to show some, educational types of things. So it really runs the gamut in terms of genre, in terms of language. Some of the films are subtitled, some of them are in English. So you really have a broad range of films to choose from. And so people can pick and choose kind of off a menu what films they want to see, watch them from home, or they can buy the series pass and watch all of them.
I know that in the past, you've been unafraid to really step forward and put out some films that cause some really good conversations and spark some dialogue that's very important. And so talk about kind of that aspect, is using these films and documentaries as a catalyst to have important conversations.
Absolutely. And, like the opening night film, it can be a little bit controversial, but that's just kind of in good fun. One of the films that we're showing, it's a documentary, it's a narrative. It's called 200 Meters, and it's about a Palestinian man and his wife who one lives over the border and one lives on the other side, 200 meters apart, and how they get to each other and get to work. And it's going to spark a lot of conversation about the borders within Israel and for the Palestinian rights and Israeli rights. And so we are going to be having a debrief from that film after it runs for people to really have a discussion together about it too.
Yeah, because I think it's important to understand, one, obviously the importance of hosting the film festival overall, but when you talk about kind of what it leads to and having these conversations and the reason you go about choosing the different films and documentaries, there's a whole strategy that goes into, what are we trying to create as the end result? And I think that's important for all of us to understand, is the context of what's really taking place that you're putting out there for us to be able to enjoy.
Absolutely. And something that I always have on my bulletin board to always remind me of the work that I do is this an opportunity to push the conversation forward? And that's always a question that I'm asking myself, whether it's choosing the films for the film festival or choosing authors to bring in for the literary series or other programs that we're doing. Is this an opportunity to push the conversation forward? That's a question that I'm always asking myself.
So as you mentioned, it starts with Greener Pastures. The next one is Black Flowers. So give us a little teaser on Black Flowers.
Sure. This is a documentary. It's a little bit shorter. It's 50 minutes, so not quite an hour. And it's the story of 5 Holocaust survivors who are artists. There's a sculptor, there's a multidisciplinary artist, and it kind of shows how their artwork enabled them to survive the war and how it's enabling them to process everything that happened post-war and where their art is now. It's a really fascinating and beautiful story.
Coming up after that, you have Powder Keg. So what's a little bit of a teaser on Powder Keg?
Sure, that's a narrative, and it's Danish with English subtitles. This one tells the story of 4 strangers. Their lives kind of intersect. It's a dramatization of the February 2015 terrorist attacks in Copenhagen. And so it is following Europe on the edge, following the Al-Qaeda violence in France. It's a thriller. You're going to be on the edge of your seat with this one. So it's based on true events, but it's a narrative and it's a thriller.
We won't go into all of them because we want everybody obviously to do their own research and
Sure.
find the ones that really interest them especially. But talk about Love It Was Not.
This is a really beautiful, beautiful story, and you can't believe that it's true. It's a documentary, and if you hear about it, you just think that nothing like that could ever happen because it's the story of a Nazi officer who falls in love with a Jewish concentration camp prisoner and their romance and how, what repercussions they suffered because of it and how they were separated and then were only brought back together because she became a witness at his war crimes trial 30 years later. And this is a documentary. Again, this is not a drama. This is not a feature film. This is a documentary. So these 2 people fell in love, this Nazi officer with this Jewish concentration camp survivor, parted ways, didn't come back together until she was a witness at his war trials 30 years later.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
What about Tiger Within with Ed Asner?
Tiger Within, of course, Ed Asner, he's wonderful. This is a great one. It's a drama, it's the story of this young teenager. She's sort of gotten in with the neo-Nazi crowd, with the skinhead crowd. She doesn't really know what she's doing. She doesn't really know what she's talking about. And of course, she meets Ed Asner, who is in the story a Holocaust survivor, and they develop a friendship. And it starts off a little, like you're not sure why he would befriend this girl and why he's doing the things that he does to help support her in her struggles. And you watch their friendship develop and you watch her metamorphosis, and it's really nice to see.
And then overall, it ends with Kiss Me Kosher. And so that's the closing night. Talk about that.
That's another one. It's a rom-com, and I love a good rom-com. And this is the story of 2 women who, one is German and one is Jewish, and their families can't believe they're together. Not only are they German and Jewish, but they're 2 girls, and the whole thing is just their families. Their minds are blown, and it's just a really great rom-com.
So which of these, and you could say all of them, I guess, but which of these really was kind of like a, wow, I didn't expect that, or, kind of a big surprise for you in terms of going in thinking one thing and then coming out thinking another?
So the film Syndrome K. It's a documentary, and that one runs February 9th to 11th virtually. I didn't know about this. There was a doctor who made up a disease to save Jews during the Holocaust. And when the Nazis came looking for them, he put them all in comas, like medically induced comas, and said that they had syndrome K and they couldn't be taken because they were so highly contagious, et cetera, but they didn't have anything. And the doctor just made it up. And I wasn't familiar with that story. It's an incredible documentary. And they were told that they were infected with this highly deadly, highly contagious disease, and the Nazis left them alone. And he saved hundreds of Jews by making up a disease that does not exist called Syndrome K.
That's awesome. And, what you're bringing out too is there's a lot of obviously historical significance. So as you're watching these, especially these documentaries, like you're learning a tremendous amount about humanity and the heroes that in many cases we might not know otherwise had it not been for these documentaries and important storylines. And so really cool opportunity to really learn a lot about history, but about humanity.
Absolutely. I've been learning about, as somebody Jewish who grew up in the Jewish community, and I work for the Jewish community now, I grew up and still, learn about the Holocaust and World War II. And I didn't know this until I saw this documentary. So even people who have been learning these things their whole lives aren't necessarily familiar with these things. There's always something new to learn. And I was just blown away by this story.
Give me some of the takeaways that you want the festival goers to be able to experience from this year's series. So I'm thinking, obviously empathy and understanding the humanity and kind of seeing love, being challenged, as you mentioned, but yet, coming through years later. Like there's a lot of, I think, really cool kind of words you could put in place, but what are some of the feelings and the words that you want that for the festival goers coming out of this year's series?
I think if we can have more empathy and understanding, like you said, in this world, especially right now, the world can use all of that we can use all of that we can get. So empathy, understanding, learning something new, learning something about a culture you might not be familiar with, whether it's the Jewish culture, the Palestinian culture, the gay culture, like not culture, but just learning something new, educating yourself, getting together safely with your friends or your family, whoever's in your world right now that you feel safe to gather with, and watch these movies and have a discussion, join in our discussion after 200 meters. And we just really want people to come away learning something new and with a stronger sense of self, but also a stronger sense of empathy in the world around them.
Recap how it works in terms of where you can get tickets for both the in-person and obviously for those who want to enjoy it at home. Talk about once again how it all works.
Sure. So we have a series pass available, and you can buy the series pass with access to the in-person screenings, or you can buy the series pass with all virtual screenings, or you can pick and choose like on a menu and just and buy the films individually as you want to see them. And you can go to our website, www.jccmemphis.org/film. And we have FAQs, we have all the trailers up there, we have click to buy tickets. It'll take you to our Eventive film website where you can get all the information, buy all of your tickets. You can reach out to me directly and I'll help walk you through it. But we've got everything set up on our website.
Outside of this event, you obviously have a number of things, as I mentioned at the onset, that you do throughout the year. Give us a little bit of teaser of some of the important dates to go ahead and stick on our calendars for 2022 for some of the other series of events.
Sure. So something that I have recently started, I guess in the last year or so, is this idea of a community read, right? When we can't gather in person, or whether we don't know whether we're going to be able to gather in person or not, or if it's going to get canceled. We have to find new ways to gather. And if you haven't read the book, The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker, I highly recommend it to anybody who's listening. And so I've had to really reconsider the way that we're gathering. And I started this program called Community Reads, where we announce our Community Reads book. You can get them all at Novel. Novel is working with us on this. They have a book table for us. And we interview, you read the book, the whole community reads the book. You can do it with your book club. You can do it by yourself, with your family, however you want to do it. Everybody reads the community read book, and then you get to join in the Zoom and meet the author, listen to how they came up with the story, their process, their research, whatever it is. and then ask them questions directly. So the next one we have coming up is on Tuesday, the 11th. And it's with Lisa Scottoline. She's a New York Times bestselling author. And oddly enough, Syndrome K, that is one of the films that I talked about with you that's in our festival, she mentions Syndrome K in her novel. So the novel, the community read, is called Eternal. It's fantastic. My book club just finished it, and nobody could put it down. And we were shocked to see that it mentioned Syndrome K in it because we had never heard of it before, but it's in the film festival. And so it's just this whole thing that just goes together. So if you want to meet Lisa Scottoline before or after you read the book on Tuesday, the 11th, 7 p.m. on Zoom, you can go to our website to sign up for that. And then you can watch Syndrome K, and then you're going to know everything you need to know about it.
Nice. I love it. We'll wrap up again with website. Where do we go to learn more?
www.jccmemphis.org/film.
Well, Marcy, always enjoy having you come on talking about the good you're doing. So thank you so much. Appreciate you being a part of the show.
Thank you for having me.